Okay, Alan, we are going to get started on our process. We're going to take this in slow, methodical steps because I'm going to try and preserve as much as possible, and that means that anything that's seized or rusted together is going to be a bit of a challenge. So it's going to be a lot of on and off work where we start and we stop and we evaluate and we proceed. And so right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you out of the case and we're going to see if we can get the dial and the hands off the watch. That's going to be our first challenge. They're perhaps the most important thing we can try and salvage. I think we're going to move forward with a new movement, and so as a consequence, the hands and dial are going to be kind of the real originality to the, at least from the cosmetic point of view, where the watch is going to retain most of its its history. So we will get started. I'm going to probably have a lot of starts and stops and give me a moments as I go. So we're gonna just do this now. First thing I really want to see, is there any motion in the keyless works? Okay. No, I can't get to the setting. I can change the date. That's kind of cool. But no, nothing with the... So we're going to try and get the hands off as they sit, which is a little frightening, but we'll see. It's going to be a little different than some of my other videos where I sort of go a little bit more quickly. This is going to be a bit slower. We'll see how that turns out. Okay. How are we going to make that happen? Make it happen carefully. Okay, second hand. Minute hand. Right. Okay, hands are off. That is reassuring. First step. Now, the question is, will the screws that are holding the dial in place budge without being pretty badly broken within, not the dial to the case, but the dial to the movement, I should say. Whoa. come back to that one. Okay, that one behaved itself. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to fight me? Let's go a little bit more rigid here. Come on. Screw, which is good. Go slowly enough. There we go. Okay. Whew. 3-2 is the back of your dial. 3-0. Wow. What? 3-0. 3-2. Well, that's weird. That's about 8 months. So, something is afoot. I'm not sure what was changed, but perhaps that's a replacement dial. Okay, well this side of the movement doesn't look terrible. All right, well, that leaves your dial. Okay, so now we're going to start the cleaning process, which is pretty delicate work and something I have to do under magnification so that I can be sure that I'm doing it right. So I'm going to start that process and start disassembling your movement as well. So give me a bit and I'll be back. Okay, Alan, well, the day has come. We have identified and found a replacement movement for your 6105B. This is the exact movement, and it is a hacking 6105B replacement. And so we are ready to get going on getting this into your watch. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and do a bit of a combination of things. We're going to try and preserve some of the things from your movement, try and use some of the pieces from this movement, basically the whole train and other things, but some of the other objects that are associated with your movement, like just to keep some of the pieces and parts together for originality's sake. I want to try and salvage as much as I can from your own movement. So we're going to do that. So this is your replacement. We're going to tear this down, get it into the baskets and ready for clean. And then we're going to go to your movement and we're going to try and salvage as much as possible from that to keep as many of your parts and pieces with that. Now, you will get what comes with this one. Basically, everything you see here will be there. The only real things I'm going to try and keep are your winding weight and your ball bearing framework, because those are the ones that are of your watch, and that's what you see when you open the back. And so it's important to me as a bit of a preservationist to make sure that those are the things that you get when you see the watch open. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Okay, well that's the teardown on your replacement movement. We're going to go ahead and jewel the arbor ports as we normally do. This one in particular will need it. And then we will move on to your movement, and we'll try and clean and prepare all the components that we're going to utilize on this movement from that. Okay, so we'll be back. Okay, Alan. Well, this is known as your ball bearing framework. This is the part of the watch that's the piece that transfers the power from the winding weight into the mainspring. And so I'm going to go ahead and just show you how much water damage there is here in these parts. You can really see how much there is. I just want to show you something. So this is your ball bearing framework, which is the winding component of your watch. And it is really the identity of the watch. It has information about the type of movement it is, and to be honest, it is really, really important, as it is the thing you see when you first open up the back of the watch, that it is what came on your 6105. So I'm trying to preserve this as much as possible. I think I've caught a bit of a break here. So I've gotten all the rust off, and you can see here are the pieces that were as part of this. These will, of course, come back to you for posterity, but not for use. So we'll replace those, of course, with the ones that were on your new movement. But check this out. I think we've caught a bit of a lucky break. So if we can hold this in place, give it a blast with some air. Spins really free. That has no lubrication. So that means that your winding weight is going to be nice and happy, which is really good. So this is in great shape, which is what we want to see. All right, Alan, we have reached the moment of, I would say, extreme importance. We are at the point now where we can start to assemble your new movement. All the pieces are in place. All the pre-lubrication has been taken care of. Everything has been cleaned. You have a new arbor port jewel here. You have a corresponding one in the train bridge, which will, of course, do the work to keep your arbor straight for the future. And so it's time to get going. Okay, so we're up and running. Let's go ahead and have a good look at the performance, and we'll come back. Okay, well, that's a pretty good place to start. So let's get to the adjustment process and see if we can get your rate up a little bit. Should not be too much of an issue. Okay, well, I feel like that's a pretty good break-in start. So we're going to keep an eye on things, make sure the signal is staying consistent. So as things move around, as the lubrication kind of makes its way, things are going to loosen up, and then you're going to change the rate a little bit. We have to kind of go back and forth and keep a good eye on things. But we're in the 230 range, and I'm going to tweak these numbers a little bit as we go, but I think as a amplitude start, this is exactly where we want to be. We want to definitely keep an eye on the rate, just let it steady, and then we'll give it another adjustment. But overall, I'm feeling pretty good here. I think this is going to be a great runner. It's already showing a lot of promise. Okay, well, I think we have reached a point where break-in is essentially done. Numbers look great. This is exactly where we want to be going into starting on the calendar side. So I'm just gonna, get started. Looking great. Great runner. Okay, Alan. Well, it is time to get going on the calendar side. Everything is broken in beautifully. It's such a solid runner. I've been watching it for about 20 hours now, and it's a really great movement. So I'm convinced it's time to move on. Okay, time to put the dial and the hands back on the watch, get it in the case, and finish the process. We'll be back. Okay, Alan, we are here right at the finish line, and we are going to sprint over. So let's get this finalized. right, here it is. This is your now freshly running, cosmetically restored 6105 8119 from 1973. Back in business. Well, it certainly wasn't easy, but we have gotten there. This is I would say, one of those situations where I tend to preach a little bit, and I'm going to preach just a bit on this one, and that is that vintage watches should never be near water in any state of their life. This one, has seals and is as good as it was the day it left Seiko in that regard. However, is it worth it? Is it worth the risk? And I always contend that it's not. In fact, I don't even pressure test watches because my warranty will never cover water intrusion, mostly because philosophically, I just won't cover that. I do make them resistant to water. We rebuild crowns, we rebuild cases. We do our best to ensure that that is the state of the watch, but the carnage is real. It's real. I mean, this watch was dead. It was dead in so many different ways. Cosmetically, mechanically. That's the movement of this watch. Now, some will say, well, it's just a watch that was built on an assembly line. All these parts are correct, and you can get new stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not cheap. There are no more 6105 movements out there that you can readily find that are easy, especially in the B variants. The A variants, they made a dress watch with an A movement, and you can find those around, but the Bs don't exist, so you have to disassemble another watch if you want a 6105 B movement. But we got one. I had one, in fact, and you are back to running. Now, we had to do some work cosmetically as well. I wanted to make sure that we left as much of the originality of the watch as we could. So your hands are original. Of course, your lume on your hands is my Vintaglow lume. So the Vintage Glow lume has the same luminosity characteristics as the original. It is new lume though. So that's just the way that is, because these were just gone. You didn't have any lume. In fact, your lume damaged a bit of the dial here. You can see the surface finish of the dial is a little bit inconsistent around the 9 o'clock marker. It's not obvious from first glance, but if you really get up close, you can see there's a little bit of haziness and shininess. That's not normal to these dials. I am also acutely aware of the ship of Theseus, in the sense that the sum of the parts has to make the whole, and if they are different parts, is it the same watch? Well, I would contend, again, that the biggest difference in a watch in terms of its originality, the difference comes in the dial, the hands, the appearance of the watch matters a lot. But I also tried to preserve as much as I could what was inside. So there are some parts, your winding assembly, I took some real pains to restore that properly. Your winding weight is your original. Those sorts of things I think are important in the sense that when you open the back of the watch, you will know. And I could, easily, this is the same winding component as you have, but it's a 6106. It fits right on, but it doesn't tell the right story of the watch. It has markings on it that say 6106 instead of 6105. So even though we could switch those things as well, I didn't. I tried to restore the one you had, and I think it came out just fine. Your crown's been rebuilt mechanically, so that's probably where most of the water intrusion came from, was a bad crown seal. So let's go through some of the just consumable items, aside from the full movement restoration. So here's the crystal that was in the watch. This is not an original crystal, so it was probably made sense just to change that to a Hardlex reproduction that is correct for these. There's your crown seal. That is not an O-ring. That is a solid piece of plastic that has, in a sense, undergone syneresis, where it shrinks back and it's no longer a seal. It's just a hard plastic donut. You've got your old seals here from your crown, or I mean from your case and from your bezel. Some incorrect spring bars. Those will come back as well. And then, of course, there's everything else, which is your movement, train of wheels, all the things that are in here that are just rotten. So, new components, a bit of looming, a lot of cleaning. It's a very, very long, slow process to bring that dial back to the way it is at the moment. We decided together not to relume your dial, to leave it as original as we could. But I think it came out great. Okay, well, Alan, we're finally getting done. It's been slower than my norm, but we had to identify some things that were important for this watch to get back together. All right, well, thanks again, and thanks for watching.